Zeus has left T1. It was announced yesterday that the star top laner who had won 2 Worlds titles with the org has now joined Hanwha Life esports. It marks the end of the greatest roster in League of Legends history. But beyond the immediate sadness from fans, there is drama. Rumors have been raging on social media that the entire move has been a mess from start to finish behind the scenes, that neither party wanted, that Zeus' agency are responsible for, and that T1 are far from happy about.
Hey guys, today's episode of Don't At Me is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians, these are things people would likely say about drivers who switch their insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com today to see if you could save. Okay, now let's get back into today's story.
In a brief post yesterday, T1 announced they were parting ways with Zeus and thanked him for all he had accomplished with them. Minutes later, they then welcomed Doran, formerly of Hanwha Life, as their new top laner. Yes, it's a straight swap between the org's top laners, and to say this was a shock departure for Zeus would be an understatement. Faigal's contract doesn't expire until next year, while Keria, Ona, and Gumayusi have already re-signed. Everyone was expecting the world's winning ZOFGK roster to run it back this year, but the dream is now over, and fans' reactions have ranged from puzzled to furious. Zeus' journey on T1, from promising academy prospect to 2-time world champion, has been nothing short of incredible. Many fans would have first started noticing him on the 2020 LCK talent show LOL The Next, where he quickly impressed Korean veterans and fans alike with not only his raw mechanical skill, but particularly his intelligent team fighting. And it wasn't too long until Zeus was called up to the starting roster for his LCK debut.
It's not bad, I say, Zeus.
Yeah, he might be in a little bit of trouble here as he does get Mega Gnar. There is the Gnar back. It's going to get rid of 3 of them for now. We'll see whether he can move fast enough. They're going to bring an extra person as Asterix does go off. In he goes once again. That's the double wall. The sleep comes down. Zeus is unkillable in this game. What the hell was that? Almost the triple kill there as the Empress Divide gets rid of Rich. He flashes on back in. He wants to try and take down Faker, but he just doesn't have enough damage. It's a double kill for the Azir in the end, and this may just be the game.
Zeus split time with Canna during spring 2021 and was benched for summer, but became their permanent starting top laner for the 2022 season after Canna's departure. Alongside his now former teammates, Ona, Faker, Gumayusi, and Keria, the so-called ZOFGK roster would embark on arguably the most incredible 3 years in League history. In spring 2022, the org achieved a historic 18-0 record, the first time an LCK team had ever gone undefeated in a split. Zeus recorded the most kills for a top laner that split and made first All-Pro team. The team went on to win the playoffs and take the LCK spring title, but the rest of the year was a year of second places. Second to RNG at MSI, second to Gen G in the LCK Summer Finals, and second to DRX in a heartbreaking Worlds Final. But for his first full year with the main roster, it wasn't a bad start for Zeus, who also won LCK Top Laner of the Year. 2023 was a mixed bag. T1 fell once again to Gen G in both the spring and summer playoffs finals, and MSI was a wash for them, so nobody expected too much from Worlds that year. But of course, this was the year that T1 would write their own fairy tale, knocking out JDG in the semi-finals and sweeping Weibo in the grand finals to win Worlds, with Zeus being named MVP of the finals. If it wasn't clear before this point that T1 had struck gold with this roster, it was now. This group felt special, and so it was no surprise that they ran it back with the same members for 2024. Despite being ravaged by DDoS attacks for the first half of the year, T1 achieved second in spring and third at MSI, but the world champions began to slowly spiral in summer, barely qualifying for Worlds after a narrow 3-2 victory over KT in the LCK regional finals. As a result, expectations were low for T1 going into Worlds, but the team grew as the tournament went on, and they eventually toppled LPL giants BLG in the grand final to win Worlds once again. And it's hard to understate just how much of an incredible achievement this is. Usually when we look at these recent Worlds victories for T1, we do so through the lens of Faker, how that was his 5th Worlds title, and how his 4th came 7 years after his 3rd. Truly impressive stuff that speaks to his consistency and longevity. But it can be easy to overlook what someone like Zeus or Ona have achieved with T1. They've been to Worlds a total of 3 times, made grand finals every single time, and have won 2 out of 3 of them. That's the kind of win record you'd be happy in your ranked games with. Zeus has pulled that off with Worlds titles, and he's still only 20 years of age. And so with all of this, the burning question is, why the hell would Zeus leave? Why is the party over for this back-to-back Worlds-winning roster, the greatest roster to ever be assembled? Well, although we have nothing official, Naver's Ko Young-jun released a report in which he says he was told the story of what happened from Zeus's agent and T1's representative, and it allegedly boiled down to two things: how much Zeus should be paid and the duration of his contract. Now, according to Young-jun, T1 said they wanted to give Zeus a 3+1 year contract, basically a 4-year contract that includes an option for the final year if certain circumstances are met. But apparently Zeus wasn't happy with his teammates being offered more attractive 2-year-long contracts. He asked for a 1+1 year contract, which was denied, leading him to not re-sign with T1. And the report paints a picture here of both sides seemingly pointing fingers at each other, with Zeus's agent claiming he gave T1 a deadline to offer a better contract length, a deadline which they missed, and T1's representative saying they requested further negotiations by phone which were delayed and then denied. The whole thing sounds like it went down to the wire and happened very quickly. From this angle, it seems to have been an unceremoniously hurried affair for a player who helped the org return to this new golden era. It's hard to decipher whether this all boiled down to contract length or simply cold, hard cash. There's rumors that HLE offered Zeus a ridiculous amount of money that T1 was simply unable or unwilling to match. And although we might not know exactly what happened behind closed doors here, it is no secret that Zeus isn't over the moon with how the whole thing went down. In an Instagram post, Zeus expressed regret that he couldn't say goodbye properly, that he doesn't feel good in reality, and that he's sorry to the fans who must have been surprised by the move. But he's not finding a lot of sympathy from some fans who are blaming him for dragging contract negotiations out till the last second, which they feel forced T1 into signing Doran as the only available option when they may have had their eyes on a player like Keen who re-signed with Gen G. But some fans are already directing their anger at Zeus's agency as the real cause of the breakup between the two parties who may have really wanted this to work. Now, there are unfounded rumors swirling that T1 are furious at Zeus's agency, that they had a verbal agreement in place with Zeus before his agency raised the contract price to an extortionate level, and even that T1 are considering legal action here. There's even been a rumor that Zeus and Keen's agents worked together to screw over T1 by ignoring T1's inquiries about Keen's free agency status until after he re-signed with Gen G in order to force T1's hands during the Zeus contract negotiations. But again, it's important to mention that these are all just rumors and we will have to see what comes out officially from either side in the coming days and weeks. But if this was all truly what Zeus wanted and he got offered a lot of money to change teams, can fans blame him? From a competitive standpoint, of course it would make sense to stick with the greatest roster ever assembled and attempt to do the world's three-peat next year, something never achieved in League of Legends history. That's what I want to see, and a lot of fans do too, but maybe Zeus doesn't have anything left to prove. He's been to the top of the mountain already and won the greatest title in the game twice. Perhaps contract lengths and pay are simply bigger priorities now for a player who has nothing left to prove. And although that might be frustrating to some fans, if it is the case, is Zeus within his rights to get that bag and stroll off into the sunset? The real question on everyone's mind is why T1 seemingly weren't able to match what Hanwha Life have offered. The rumors are that they were similar amounts of money and both offered the 1+1 year contract, but something must not have added up on the T1 side of things for Zeus. Hopefully we hear more in the coming days, because for many people this whole move just doesn't make sense for either party on paper. This is particularly true in the case of T1, who are now allegedly facing mass refund requests for the ZOFGK roster merch that they sold to fans in the wake of their latest Worlds win. From a marketing perspective, T1 have built their entire brand around this roster. These 5 players as a unit have been the past, present and future for them. There's even been rumors that if and when Faker does eventually step down, the remaining ZOGK members were going to be the future branding that T1 built around. Branding aside, let's talk about whether this move will be a competitive net gain for T1. It's honestly hard to tell, and you could make a solid argument either way. Now, on the one hand, Doran takes their head-to-head matchup, and we have seen games where he's definitely slapped Zeus around. But on the other, look what Zeus has achieved. Sure, he and the rest of T1 have underperformed domestically, but they've eclipsed everyone internationally. There's been an X factor with this ZeoFGK roster at Worlds in recent years. They may start the tournament cold, but when they warm up and begin to click, they look unstoppable. Now, you might say that Doran will be able to slot right in and that the team won't lose that magic spark, and sure, that may very well happen. If T1's success comes down to the org's management style or Faker's leadership instilling a sense of calmness and confidence in their younger players, then Doran may very well have the ability and pedigree to just plug the gap. Let's not forget, he's a 3-time LCK champion. But we can't pretend that Zeus was just along for the ride. He has been a monster for T1 in recent years, and arguably the deciding factor in many of their razor-edge victories that have built up to create this incredible record. 2-time LCK top laner of the year, 3-time LCK first all-pro team, and world's final MVP. This is not the resume of a journeyman system player whose only role is to facilitate Faker. He's as responsible for their success as the GOAT himself. There are a ton of if, buts, and maybes with this new DOFGK roster. The core of this incredible team is still there, of course, and they still have the greatest player to ever play the game. But we'll soon see just how much of a factor Zeus was in their success, or perhaps the synergy that those 5 players have built. And while we wait for those answers, the contract disputes may rage on behind the scenes. If the rumors are to be believed, T1 are not just unhappy with having to let Zeus go, they are furious with his agency and are considering legal action. Again, that is just a rumor, but it's a hell of a spicy one. If anything official comes out in the coming days or weeks, we'll be sure to let you know.